You're driving somewhere completely ordinary. The grocery store, a street you've taken 100 times without thinking about it, and then a song comes on, not one you chose. One the algorithm surfaced, or the radio remembered, or your phone found in some buried playlist you made years ago and completely forgot about. In about 4 seconds, you're not in the car anymore. You're somewhere else, somewhere you can almost smell. A kitchen, a summer, a version of your life that felt like it was still just beginning. The faces are there, the specific quality of afternoon light through a window you don't live near anymore. The feeling, that exact feeling, is there too. Then the song ends. A truck honks. You arrive. You put the car in park and go buy milk, but something stays. A kind of ache that isn't sadness, exactly. Heavier than happiness, softer than grief. You carry it through the store, through the rest of the day. You don't mention it to anyone, because how do you explain that a song just made you feel like you lost something you didn't even know you still had? Nobody has a clean word for it. Or maybe they do, and maybe that's the problem. The feeling that has no clean name, the word nostalgia, was invented to describe a medical condition. Physicians once treated it as pathology, a dangerous longing for home so acute it left soldiers unable to function, unable to move. They weren't being poetic. They genuinely believed the yearning for the past was making people physically ill. The diagnosis eventually disappeared. The feeling never did. What's strange about nostalgia is how difficult it is to locate emotionally. When researchers ask people to describe it, the answers contradict each other. Warm and painful, sweet and hollow, comforting and destabilizing all at once. Your brain doesn't seem to know whether this is a reward or a wound, so it delivers it as both simultaneously. That's not a malfunction. That's the architecture. Nostalgia is bittersweet by design. It reaches towards something it already knows it cannot retrieve. The pleasure and the ache don't arrive in spite of each other. They arrive fused, because the emotion is essentially loss wrapped in love. You wouldn't ache for it if it hadn't mattered. You wouldn't love it if it weren't gone. In midlife, this emotion finds its fullest expression, not because the past is further away, but because, for the first time, you can see both directions clearly. Behind you, a life with real texture, real chapters, real weight. Ahead, a horizon that looks different than you once imagined. Nostalgia floods the middle, where you're standing between the two. Why midlife is nostalgia's native territory. Children don't feel nostalgia the way adults do. They don't have enough past yet. The emotion requires distance. Temporal, emotional, the kind that only accumulates with actual years. By your 40s, you have decades of it to draw from. But it's not just accumulation. Something specific shifts in midlife that makes the past feel more present, not less. The identity questions that were supposed to be settled, who you are, what your life is for, whether you chose correctly, start quietly reopening, not always dramatically, sometimes just as a low hum. A restlessness, a sense that you're moving through your days slightly faster than you meant to. When identity becomes uncertain in the present, the mind reaches for certainty in the past, and nothing feels more certain than a memory that's had years to settle. Here's what most people miss. Nostalgia isn't really about then, it's about now. It tells you something is missing in your present, connection, meaning, simplicity, possibility, by gesturing toward a time when those things felt abundant. The past becomes a mirror. You're not really looking at it. You're looking at your present through it. The song in the car doesn't take you back to the summer you were 23. It tells you something about 44. It says, something you had then, you're hungry for now. The question is what, exactly? What your brain is actually doing. I used to think this was just sentimentality. Then I looked at what's actually happening in the brain, and it made the feeling seem less embarrassing and more architectural. When nostalgia arrives, your brain activates regions associated with memory and reward simultaneously. The hippocampus reconstructs the past. The reward circuitry floods the reconstruction with warmth. The result is a memory that feels truer and more beautiful than any photograph you took at the time. But here's the catch. Memory is not a recording. It's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, your brain rebuilds it from fragments. And during rebuilding, it edits. Details blur. Emotional tone intensifies or softens. Competing realities get quietly resolved in favor of the story your nervous system currently needs. The version of the past you access through nostalgia is not purely the past. It's the past as curated by your present emotional state. Your brain keeps the laughter and softens the arguments. It keeps the freedom and edits out the loneliness. It keeps the light and forgets the rain. This isn't dishonesty. It's survival architecture. Nostalgic memory tends to amplify belonging, the feeling of connection, of mattering to someone, of being part of something. Researchers found something almost counterintuitive. People who feel most isolated are also the ones who travel furthest into the past. As if the mind, unable to find warmth in the present, goes looking for it somewhere it knows existed. Your brain uses the past as emotional medicine. The dose arrives before you even ask for it. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If your brain is editing the past to comfort you, what else is it editing? The things you miss that never quite existed. There is a specific kind of nostalgia that is the most disorienting of all. The kind where you can't identify what exactly you're longing for. The feeling is vivid, the object is vague. You miss something, but you couldn't name it. A sense of possibility, maybe. The feeling that everything was still open. The particular quality of a summer afternoon when you had nowhere to be, and the future was still entirely theoretical. Some of that was real, but some of it was never there. You were anxious at 21 too, uncertain, lonely in ways you couldn't articulate. You just didn't know yet that those feelings were universal instead of catastrophic. What you're often missing in midlife is not a specific time. You're missing a relationship to time itself. The slow, expansive relationship you had with it before the calendar became a series of recurring obligations, before the years started collapsing into each other with unsettling speed. You didn't lose a decade. You lost the feeling that decades were infinite. The objects that carry it, nostalgia doesn't arrive on schedule. It ambushes through objects. A song, yes, but also a smell, chlorine, a particular brand of sunscreen, someone's perfume encountered for the first time in 15 years on a stranger in a store aisle, a font on a cereal box, the specific weight of an old textbook, the sound of a dial-up connection, if you're old enough to remember it, which lands like a telegram from a country that no longer exists. These objects are triggers because they were encoded during emotionally significant periods. Your brain doesn't store memories flatly. It stores them with the emotional charge they carried at the time of formation. A song from the summer you fell in love doesn't carry just melody. It carries the entire texture of that year, compressed into 3 minutes and 40 seconds. In midlife, those objects become more powerful, not less. You've had more time for the emotional charge to concentrate, and you encounter them less frequently now, which means when you do, the gap between then and now becomes fully legible all at once. The object hasn't aged. You have. That is the specific cruelty and beauty of a nostalgic trigger. It holds still while everything else moved. When nostalgia curdles most of the time, nostalgia is benign. It visits, it aches, it passes, and leaves behind something loosely resembling tenderness toward your own life. That's healthy. That's the emotion doing exactly what it's meant to do. But there is a version that doesn't pass. When the past becomes a permanent residence instead of a temporary shelter, something shifts. You start comparing every present moment to a remembered ideal that the present can never match, because the ideal was curated, while the present is raw and unedited. The present has traffic and invoices and conversations that go badly. The past has been sanded smooth by time. When nostalgia curdles, it becomes a form of quiet disengagement. You're physically present in your life while emotionally living somewhere else. Every good thing happening now gets measured against a golden version of before and found wanting. Your friendships are real, but they don't have the effortless intimacy of friendships you barely maintained 20 years ago. Your life is full, but it doesn't feel the way full was supposed to feel. This version deserves attention. Not because longing is wrong, but because it's being used to avoid something. The past is being weaponized against the present. And underneath that, usually lives something specific: grief, disappointment, a decision you haven't yet made peace with. The question nostalgia is really asking in those moments isn't what did you have then, it's what are you avoiding now. What it's actually asking you, nostalgia in midlife, is not sentimental weakness. It's communication from one part of your psyche to another. When you find yourself aching for a particular summer, a particular group of friends, a particular version of your days, what you're receiving is diagnostic information. Your emotional system is pointing at a need that isn't being met. Not then. Now. The summer you miss might not be the summer at all. It might be the ease you felt in your body, the lack of self-consciousness, the way an afternoon could simply disappear without guilt. If that's what you're longing for, the question isn't, how do I back there? The question is, where did the ease go, and is there a version of it available in this life, in this body, in this chapter? The friendships you miss might not be those specific people. It might be the quality of being truly known, of being understood without explanation, of not having to perform competence and stability all the time. You can't retrieve those friendships, but you can recognize the hunger for depth and let that hunger direct you somewhere real. Nostalgia is a compass. It points towards something you valued and have quietly drifted from. It's not asking you to go backward. It's asking you to look carefully at where you are and ask what has been quietly abandoned, what can still be chosen in a different form in this life that is actually yours. The gift inside the ache, the research, the philosophers, and the quiet evidence of lived experience all seem to land in the same place. Nostalgia, at its best, is not about the past at all. It's about meaning. When you feel it, you're feeling the weight of a life that mattered to you. The fact that it aches is evidence that you loved something, that you were present enough in some chapter for it to leave a mark. People who never feel nostalgia don't lack sentiment. They often lack attachment. They move through experiences without being changed by them. The ache you carry is the exact shape of the care you gave. In midlife, that matters. Because midlife is the first moment you can hold the actual texture of your life in your hands. Not the imagined future of it, but what has really happened. The people, the rooms. The versions of yourself that were bewildered and trying and somehow still moving. You can look at that accumulation and feel its weight. That weight is not a burden, it's ballast. It keeps you grounded when the present is disorienting. It reminds you, without saying it in words, that you have been shaped by love and difficulty and time, and that shaping is irreversible and real and entirely yours. The next time a song finds you in traffic, and it will, you don't have to understand it. You just have to notice what it's pointing at, not back, toward.